Welcome back into the Wolverine.com podcast here on, you guessed it, Hot Take, the Wolverine.com. I am Anthony Broome along with Clayton Sayfie here on Selection Sunday night. It's the most wonderful time of the year officially. The NCAA Tournament bracket is out. And despite all of the stress, despite all of the drama, despite all of the uncertainty of what the last, really the last month or so has been, because Michigan's gone win-loss in every game since February 10th. Michigan basketball is in the NCAA tournament. Both Michigan basketball teams are in the NCAA tournament. We'll shout out the women here a little bit later, but want to start with the men's team. Avoided the first four, which is something that I think was objective number one this weekend. Michigan goes into the tournament as an 11 seed. They will take on the number 6 seed in Colorado State on Thursday. And you guessed it, back in Indianapolis. It's basically a satellite hometown for the Wolverines over the last several months here, but they'll actually kick off the tournament Thursday. The Thursday tournament games at 12:15 on CBS. Clayton, after everything that went down on Thursday when we were in Indianapolis, the weekend, so many scenarios to play out through the routing guides and all of that stuff. Michigan is in, but before we talk about Michigan, let's just talk about the weekend. After the loss to Indiana, their destiny was not in their own hands. And a lot of things happened that kind of pushed them, I think, closer to being on the first four, or maybe even out of the tournament. But just share with me your psyche over the last few days since last we spoke.
Well, I watched so much basketball. The Big Ten tournament was outstanding, other than what happened to Michigan on Thursday. So, hopefully some people were able to still kind of watch that and enjoy it. Shout out to Iowa for winning it. We were high on Iowa all week. I feel like thinking, man, this team's hot. So great basketball. But you're right. I was reading your routing guide every morning, and then I'd watch these games, and basically, it seemed like over 50% of those games that, and these are upsets we're talking about too. Like, it didn't go Michigan's way in over half of those games, it seemed like. But at the same time, there was a lot of panic, it seemed like, on Friday night when they started to get some of those upsets in different conference tournaments, Virginia Tech, Texas A&M, some others. And I didn't totally panic like the rest of the people because, yeah, Jerry Palm moved Michigan out and Joe Lunardi was shuffling the deck even though no games happened. There was like a 7-hour window where they were in the last 4 buys, and then they moved to the last 4 in when nothing happened. But I wasn't totally panicking when it came to Michigan, because I think a lot of people forget that, yeah, a team below you on the pecking order may win, but it doesn't just move them up automatically. Like, you still have to then, okay, let's reevaluate the resumes. What did that one win do? They do not weigh games at the end of the season. They don't put more importance on them than they do games in November. They stopped doing that a few years ago. So there were so many factors in this. I was looking at brackets throughout the weekend, bracketmatrix.com, outstanding site. And somebody was saying they got like only one team wrong. And this is accumulation of a bunch of brackets. So watched a lot of basketball, looked at a lot of brackets, felt like Michigan was about 50-50 to either get a bye or end up in the first 4 by the time selection show came around. And it was the bye. And you hate to see Notre Dame, have to go to Dayton like that, and other teams. But Michigan pretty safe. Colorado State is the 6th seed. I was looking at the other 6s. Not a great crop of 6 seeds. LSU is probably dead in the water, so maybe they would have been better to play. But I'm sure we'll talk about Colorado State a little bit more right now. But I feel like Michigan's in a pretty good spot. Tennessee is your second round game. That's gonna be tough, but it was gonna be tough either way. And not having to play in Dayton, I think, is huge because, as we know, Michigan, win loss. Maybe they win that and then lose their round of 64 game. Now they can use that win. Hunter Dickinson joked about that tonight, how they're every other, win-loss. So maybe they'll get that win in the round of 64 and then take your shot at the Volunteers.
Yeah, and throughout the week we'll do the deep dives. We'll do the Colorado State, we'll pull them apart and we'll see what Michigan's chances are in this game. But for now, I think the takeaway is that Michigan fans can exhale. You can make your plans for tournament weekend around your team, and some people. I know a lot of Michigan fans will probably be using the boss button on Thursday since it is that 12:15 game to start off the day. But after they lost to Indiana, that starting in the first four, I think we all kind of come to terms with the fact that that was a real possibility. And
Yeah.
while it wouldn't have been ideal, I think it's better than missing the tournament completely, which is something that, even going back to December, people were kind of bracing for. So I think there was a little more uncertainty as opposed to like where they were going to be, as opposed to if they were going to be in at all.
Hmm.
There's a lot more to Michigan's resume than just the 17-14 record. Despite that, Michigan's in, and that's all that currently matters. And with, we've talked about this before, where it's unlikely that they can maybe it's more likely than not that they don't reach the preseason expectations in terms of making a Final Four and competing for a national title. But this isn't an upstart program that is just happy to be there, right? This is a program that has a recent pedigree of success there. This is not a participation trophy for them. So to be firmly in, to play your first game on Thursday, and to not do if the formula is win loss, if you're a Michigan fan, you're probably hoping that win loss comes in the first and second rounds as opposed to first four and then the first round, because
Right.
the eyes of the nation will be on that game on Thursday as opposed to what happens in the first four. So the focus turns now to how much of a push can this team make? Is this a team that can win two in a row? Because if you don't win two in a row at some point now, your season's over. So we know what it looks like when they come to play. We know what it looks like when they don't play as well. It all builds up to this now. So with all that being said, with the draw, with Colorado State, with what you know about them so far, because you were the one that did the first look at them, what do you think about this matchup on Thursday?
Yeah, I've looked at quite a bit already, and obviously as you said, we'll get to more as the week progresses, and it's going to go quick. I feel like things are going to be heating up here very, very quickly. But looking at Colorado State, this is a team similar in profile to Michigan, 20th best offense in the country, 83rd in defense, so much stronger on the offensive end, struggle defensively. Now, this is a small team, as you pointed out right away when they got the draw. Only one guy. So their average height is 6'4", which is in the 300s in terms of height in the country. They have one guy in the rotation that's over 6'8", and that's a 6'10" center that plays about 30% of their minutes. So they go small, they play 5-out offense, and they have a star in David Roddy, who is the guy that everybody's going to be talking about over the next 4 days. He's top 10 in Ken Palm's National Player of the Year watch list. He averages 19 points a game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Posts up. He's smaller at 6'6", but he's thick at 255 and can really get to the rim. Likes to back guys down. Okay, well, Michigan's got a couple good big guys, right? But at the same time, they're gonna have to be chasing these guys around on the perimeter. So it's gonna be kind of one of those things where people are gonna be scared all week about how Hunter Dickinson's gonna play out on the perimeter, or Musa Diabate is gonna D up against Roddy, or whoever gets that assignment. That maybe some people are gonna lose sight of. Hey, they have to guard Michigan too, and that's something that Colorado State hasn't done a great job of this season. They haven't played many good big men, but they give up a lot of points from 2-point range, allowing over 55% from inside the arc. So, you feel like you got a shot there. It's just a matter of whose, mismatch ends up being better. And Michigan's a 2-point favorite, 2.5. I saw you said 3. I saw 2 and 2.5. So it's kind of in that range. Ken Palm has it as 1 in a toss up. So this is kind of what we talked about last week, that when Michigan gets in the big dance, as you said, the 17-14 doesn't mean a lot. The 11 seed doesn't really mean a lot. This is probably the better team in Michigan. You're going to have the best player on the floor, and Hunter Dickinson, who was an All-American last season. You have a point guard who has really emerged in Devontae Jones. You have an elite shooter when he's on in Caleb Houston. Same thing you could say about Eli Brooks. So there's a lot here that I think can carry Michigan to wins. We've seen that throughout the season. It's the consistency part that scares me. But Colorado State, an interesting team. Michigan played and struggled against Tarleton State at home earlier in the year. Tarleton State, not a good team at all, but they played this 5-out type of thing, and with a bunch of small guys, and it gave Michigan a little bit of trouble. So that was in December. We'll see, but it's definitely an intriguing matchup, and I feel like as we dig more into it, we'll get a better feel for it. But it's Colorado State's a good team. A couple common opponents with Michigan. San Diego State and UNLV, they lost 4 out of 5 games to those teams. So that's something to note as well. They're 6-3 against NCAA tournament teams, while Michigan's 7-12, which is crazy. Like 6-3 looks a little bit better, but they also had some bad losses too. Um, so I feel like Michigan should have a slight edge, and they do. And man, I can't wait till Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the opening round draw that they got is probably about as good as one as they could have hoped for, being that they are
Yeah.
at 11 seed. These teams, I think KenPom has them, as in a coin flip game. The Vegas odds certainly bear that out. Colorado State is 31st on KenPom, and they're 20th on offense and 83rd in offensive and defensive efficiency. So they're like, in terms of the KenPom profile, they are like right there with Michigan, slightly a few spots higher in terms of total efficiency margin. But yeah, this is a good draw for them. I think in a game like this, when it is so close, you look to the margins as well. I think that something that could work out in Michigan's favor is that Colorado State also has a backcourt that's a little bit shorter, like Michigan's is. I think whenever they play guards with length, that's a concern for them. So I think that Devontae Jones and Eli Brooks. I mean, the way Devontae Jones is playing right now, I think that guy can win you a tournament game on his own. So I like what I see there. Not to look too far ahead, but should Michigan find a way to pull what the bracket would call an upset, they would get a date with either Tennessee or Longwood, which probably Tennessee. But again, you never know what happens this time of year. Like we said before, Michigan hasn't won consecutive games in over a month, and they're coming off of a loss. So for all of us to sit here and go, hey, let's fill out the bracket, where do you think that Michigan will finish? Well, it's likely they wind up 1-1. But hey, we'll see what happens. If Longwood finds a way to pull off an upset over Tennessee, I think all bets are off there. But as we given what the expectations are, if you can just get this one and take it one game at a time. See what happens. But, looking at the rest of the draw, if they were to get out of this weekend, which I think we can discuss later what it would mean for them to get out of this first weekend. But, Sweet 16 would look like Ohio State, Loyola Chicago, Villanova, Delaware. If Villanova gets tripped up somewhere, things get really interesting before then. But right now, like we said, it's one game at a time. This Michigan team, to me, is as hard to project as one we've ever covered. Evidenced by the 17-14 record, but it's March Madness, my friend. Crazier things have happened this time of year.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like I don't love the Tennessee matchup if I'm Michigan, because Tennessee's a great defensive team. And I've said that the team that's going to beat Michigan, I think, is somebody that's really good on offense, but Tennessee's also good on offense as well. And I know they struggled at times. They looked better maybe mid-season than they have towards the end. But like at the same time, they're in and they get a shot at another team if it is that second game. Now, looking at the bracket overall, and I found myself kind of being like, shoot, they're in Arizona's bracket. But then you remember it's like, all right, that would be the Elite Eight game if they could get there, because they're going to lose to Arizona if they play them. I'll just say that because it's a terrible matchup. But at the same time, Arizona may not be there, even though I think Arizona is going to be my national championship pick when I fill this thing out. But yeah, as you name some of those teams that would be the Sweet 16 opponent, I don't hate that at all. Villanova is a good team, but do I think they're anything that Michigan can't handle, or that if, in a different world, if Michigan replayed this season, that Michigan wouldn't be a better team than Villanova? I think that's entirely possible. So, like the draw, other than potentially Tennessee in that second game, you'll probably get a good amount of volunteer fans as well up in Indy. Also, Kentucky fans are going to be swarming that place as well. So maybe they'd be rooting for Michigan. I don't know so much about that, but it's I feel like it's a decent draw. You look at some of the other regions, could be a little better, could be a little worse. It feels like kind of what it would be if you're an 11 seed or in that game against a 6 that you are actually favored over. So I don't hate it. I don't expect Michigan to get to the second weekend, but it would be a huge feat to do that for a 5th straight time. No team has an active streak more than 6. Gonzaga right now, Michigan's the second longest active streak at 4. So as you said, this is not some upstart program. This is one of the premier programs in the country. And everybody has that down year where you end up being a double-digit seed. Duke didn't make the tournament last year. You know, other teams as well, like North Carolina was a 9. They've had some years where they just kind of squeak in the tournament. That's where Michigan is this year, but they can still do some damage, I think.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, if and time will tell in terms of the Juwan Howard era, like what the ceiling, what the floor is. I mean, if this is a season where 17 and 14 and you advance to the round of 32 is the floor, there's a lot of programs that would take that, and that's not justifying the missteps and what the season has been, which I have no issues calling it right now a disappointment. But time will tell, like the long term view of what this season was. But I don't know. Other thoughts here before we get out of. I mean, you said that you think Arizona will be your national championship winner. I'm leaning towards this being the year Gonzaga finally breaks through. I have questions about that, and certainly I wrote about this too. A potential round of 32 matchup with a Memphis team that has been rolling since Amani Bates has been out is really
Yes,
interesting to me.
that could happen. They want
Uh,
that smoke.
I know it. The other thoughts I wrote about, none of us, no Michigan fans, anyone that is a supporter of the Wolverines will cry about Michigan State's draw. But it is objectively hilarious that they get Foster Lawyer in the first round and then potentially have to play Duke again in the second round, which Michigan State fans are upset about that. But they were able to get one over Duke the last time they played in the tournament, so. You play that out and see what happens from there. It does kind of feel like Indiana got hosed. I think given what happened this weekend and its win over Michigan, you
In
could make the
Illinois,
argument
yeah.
those two should have flip-flopped in what their assignment was. But other than that, I don't see a ton of controversy in the brackets, the way it was seeded. I think we're all just ready to get this thing rolling and go from there.
So yeah, the as I kind of peruse the bracket, it's kind of funny when you have this job, you like actually look at the bracket less in the first few hours than probably anybody else because we're so focused on one of the 32 games that are going to happen in that first round. But I have a bold prediction in the East bracket, which is Baylor as the 1, Kentucky as the 2, Purdue as the 3, and UCLA as the 4. I think either Purdue or UCLA is going to come out of that bracket. Now, subject to change, but just looking at it, I've kind of pegged Purdue as a team that I feel like is actually going to make it run for once. I know they did a few years ago. And then I like UCLA. I watched a lot of them this year weirdly because they're on late and I stay up late and I like what I've seen from them. Trying to run it back here. Their defense is much better than last year and they made the Final Four. But yeah, Arizona to me is the best team. Super impressive what they did without Kirk Krisha in the Pac-12 tournament, beating UCLA last night to win that title. And they're just athletic. They have a rim protector. They can do it on both ends. So I feel like that's going to be my national champion. I'm sure we'll go through the bracket and probably talk more about it later in the week. But it's beautiful to look at, Anthony. And man, these games are going to be fun. Michigan kicking off the action. Feel like it's been a while since that happened, maybe like 2009 ish. I feel like they played early Thursday, but it's been a long time, and I
It,
don't love it because I kind of like watching those games and then easing in because like if Michigan loses, they're done, and that's it. But at the same time, a lot of people will be watching, a lot of people will be using that boss button, a lot of people will be taking a long lunch on Thursday, so super excited.
yeah, it feels like the last time they started off early was maybe when they played Tennessee and blitzed them.
That's what I'm thinking.
Um,
Them or Clemson, maybe.
yeah, but
You might be right on Tennessee. Yeah.
yeah, just some quick food for thought for people filling out their brackets. Something I like to use, and again, I've never won a bracket pool, so you could take this for what it's worth. But over the last decade or so, most national champions have been top 10 in KenPom on offensive deficiency and top 15 in defensive efficiency. Baylor kind of threw that out the door last year. They were second in offense, 22nd in defense. But by the 10-15 thing I go by, there are 3 teams that fit that bill right now: Gonzaga, Baylor, and Houston. So something to think about. There are other teams right there on the margin: Arizona, Auburn, UCLA. We'll see what happens. But I'm gonna print as soon as I hit end on this show. I'm gonna print out my brackets. I'm going to stay up way too late, going
Yes.
through them. I only fill out one bracket. I'm a one bracket guy. That is the
Oh,
canon bracket for all the pools I will be in. I print out two. I print out the one to fill out and one to fill in with results in real time that I carry with me over the
I
next
like that
few weeks.
too.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's going to do it for us. Thanks to you, Clayton, for hopping on quickly here on a Sunday night with a lot going on. Of course, anyone that's listening, you can subscribe to our shows here on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify. Our $1 deal over at the Wolverine is still live and active, so sign up for that. It gets you a whole it's an embarrassment of riches of content that you get for only a single dollar. So encourage you guys to sign up for that. We'll have a ton this week on the NCAA tournament up against the background of spring football is still going on. So a lot of going on in the Michigan world. A lot is going on in the Michigan world right now. We appreciate you guys for being along for the ride, and we will talk to you again soon.
Hold on, one last quick thing if you haven't hit it. Kim
No.
Barnes-Arico, her team, 3rd seed, highest ever for Michigan for the 2nd straight year. 6th seed was the highest before, which was last year, hosting the first 2 rounds. So good luck to them. And she's got that thing rolling. Too bad they didn't win the Big Ten regular season, but they got a good shot here in this region, in the Wichita region of the women's bracket.
Yeah, that's bad hosting on my part. I said we would give him
No,
a shout out, and we did. Clayton did, so he's the hero. He's the host, the co-host of the day. Good luck to the Michigan men this week. Good luck to the Michigan women this week, who will play their games at Chrysler Center. It's March Madness. Let's get this thing rolling. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk soon.